In the early 19th century, auction houses emerged as central institutions for the enslavement of Africans from 1820 onward, a period marking the peak of the domestic slave trade in the United States as the nation expanded westward. Welcome to The Glorious Historian, where the silenced voices of enslaved Africans resound through time. From brutal chains to unbroken spirits, we unveil their struggles, resilience, and legacy. Subscribe now, share your thoughts below, and journey deeper into their truth. Let their voices guide your heart. Listen on. The years 1820 to 1860 witnessed an unprecedented explosion in the demand for enslaved labor, driven by the rapid expansion of cotton plantations across the Deep South, where the invention of the cotton gin had intensified the need for human hands to cultivate and harvest the lucrative crop. White auctioneers, clad in fine black wool coats that signified their status, presided over these grim events, their voices booming across crowded squares as they cataloged human lives for sale with clinical precision, their authority unquestioned by the legal and social systems of the time. Black enslaved men, women, and children, dressed in tattered cotton dresses and shirts that hung loosely on their emaciated frames, were forced to stand on wooden blocks, their bodies exposed to the invasive scrutiny of bidders, their futures hanging in a balance dictated by market forces rather than human compassion. The auction houses, often strategically located in bustling southern towns like Charleston and New Orleans, transformed into marketplaces of despair, where families were systematically torn apart to meet the insatiable economic demands of white planters seeking to expand their holdings. White enslavers profited immensely from these transactions, their wealth growing with each successful sale. The trade in human beings, a lucrative business that fueled the Southern economy and reinforced their social dominance. The process began with rigorous inspections, where Black individuals were forced to display their physical condition, muscles flexed, mouths opened for dental checks, their dignity stripped away in a public ritual of dehumanization. Overseers, dressed in gray wool coats that distinguished them from the enslaved, ensured compliance during these preparations, their whips ready to enforce order. Their presence a constant and menacing threat that silenced any hint of resistance. Black resilience surfaced in these moments of trial, their strength evident as they faced the auction block with a quiet dignity, their ability to endure a testament to the human spirit. The rise of these auction houses marked a dark and pivotal chapter in American history, breaking familial bonds with ruthless efficiency and leaving a legacy of trauma that would resonate for generations. A system built on the commodification of Black lives that shaped the social and economic landscape of the antebellum South. Preparation for auctions from 1820 to 1860 was a grueling and dehumanizing process for Black enslaved individuals, meticulously designed to maximize their market value and ensure the highest possible bids from prospective buyers. White enslavers gathered Black men, women, and children from their cabins, their tattered cotton clothing carefully inspected and sometimes replaced with slightly cleaner rags to enhance their physical presentation, a superficial attempt to mask the toll of their labor and suffering. Auctioneers, dressed in fine black wool coats that exuded authority, evaluated the health and strength of each individual with a cold, calculating eye, their hands probing bodies for signs of robustness, their judgments devoid of empathy or recognition of humanity. Black individuals were subjected to a harsh regimen of washing and oiling, their skin made to shine under the sun with a deceptive gloss that hid the malnutrition and exhaustion beneath, a preparation that turned their bodies into polished goods for sale. Families were separated early in this process, mothers torn from their children and fathers from their wives, the heartbreak beginning long before the auction block, the emotional bonds severed as a strategic move to prevent resistance. White overseers, clad in gray wool coats that marked their role as enforcers, supervised this preparation with an iron hand, their whips ensuring obedience and swift compliance, their commands sharp and unyielding as they drove the enslaved through the ordeal. The process often included the application of branding or tagging, where marks of ownership were burned into black skin with hot irons, a permanent and painful reminder of their status as property, a ritual that added to their physical and psychological burden. Black resilience shone through this humiliation, their spirits holding firm despite the degradation, their inner strength a quiet rebellion against the objectification they endured. The preparation turned human lives into commodities, a prelude to the auction's cruelty that stripped away identity and replaced it with a price tag, a system where white profit drove every action, their greed unrelenting as they set the stage for the family separations that would follow. This preparation was not merely physical, but a psychological assault designed to break the will of the enslaved, yet their endurance persisted. A silent protest against the machinery of the slave trade that sought to reduce them to mere objects of trade. Auction Day from 1820 to 1860 was a day of terror and public humiliation for Black enslaved individuals, transforming into a grim spectacle of human trade that drew crowds of white spectators and bidders. White auctioneers, dressed in fine black wool coats that symbolized their control, stood on raised platforms in the center of town squares or auction houses, their voices calling out bids with a rhythmic cadence, their authority absolute as they orchestrated the sale of human lives with practiced efficiency. Black men, women, and children, clad in tattered cotton dresses and shirts that barely covered their weary bodies, were paraded onto wooden blocks, their bodies displayed for the invasive inspection of bidders, their eyes often downcast to avoid the shame of the gazes that assessed them. Bidders, predominantly white men in wool suits who represented the planter elite, examined every detail, teeth, muscles, and posture, with a mercenary interest, their hands intrusive as they determined the worth of each individual, their decisions based solely on economic value rather than human worth. Families were split apart in this chaotic scene, children sold to one buyer and mothers to another, the cries of the separated echoing through the crowd, a sound that went unheeded by the white participants engrossed in their transactions. Overseers, dressed in gray wool coats, maintained order with a heavy hand, their whips cracking through the air to silence any resistance or emotional outburst, their presence a constant intimidation that ensured the process moved forward without delay. The highest bid secured the sale, Black lives reduced to a series of dollars and cents. The transactions completed with swift precision that left no room for reconsideration or mercy. Black resilience emerged amidst this chaos, their silent endurance a form of defiance against the public degradation, their ability to stand tall a testament to their inner strength. Auction Day left indelible scars on the psyche and communities of the enslaved, breaking families with calculated precision. A day where the brutality of the system was laid bare for all to see. Yet their spirit remained unbroken, a quiet resistance against the tide of cruelty that defined these events. The emotional toll of separation during auctions from 1820 to 1860 devastated Black enslaved families, inflicting wounds that lingered across generations and shaped their collective experience. White auctioneers, clad in fine black wool coats that denoted their authority, finalized sales with an indifference that ignored the tears streaming down Black faces. Their focus solely on the completion of profitable deals. Black mothers clung desperately to their children, their hands pried apart by white hands. The separation an agonizing ordeal that tore at their hearts, their sobs unheard amidst the clamor of the auction, a sound swallowed by the indifference of the crowd. Fathers watched helplessly as their wives were led away in chains, their bonds shattered in an instant, their hearts broken by the irreversible loss, a pain that etched itself into their souls. Black children, dressed in tattered cotton shirts that hung loosely on their small frames, cried out for their lost parents, their innocence destroyed by the sudden abandonment, their future shrouded in uncertainty and fear. White bidders, attired in wool suits that signified their wealth, cared only for the profit to be gained, their coldness deepening the emotional chasm, their lack of empathy a stark contrast to the suffering they caused. Overseers in gray wool coats enforced the split with ruthless efficiency, their whips silencing any attempt at resistance or reunion, their role a cruel extension of the auctioneer's will, ensuring the process remained unhindered. The emotional void left by these separations was profound. Black spirits tested to their limits, yet resilience grew from this pain, a quiet strength that allowed them to endure the unbearable. Separation haunted their nights with memories of lost loved ones, a trauma passed through generations, a silent legacy of grief that became a defining aspect of their collective identity, a wound that time could not fully heal, but which they carried with a dignity born of survival. Buyers played a pivotal and destructive role in breaking Black families from 1820 to 1860, their choices driven by economic necessity and personal gain rather than human consideration. White men, attired in fine wool suits that marked their status as plantation owners or merchants, attended auctions with a clear intent, seeking strong laborers to bolster their fields, their bids selective and calculated to meet their specific needs. Black men were often chosen for their physical prowess, torn from their families, and left behind in the chaos of the sale, the separation a deliberate act to fulfill the labor demands of distant plantations, their familial ties disregarded. White planters, also in wool coats, preferred young women for domestic work within their households, splitting them from their children with a cold pragmatism, their decisions reflecting a system that valued utility over humanity, the loss of family bonds, a secondary concern. Overseers, dressed in gray wool coats, facilitated these choices with meticulous care, their assistants ensuring that the buyer's selections were carried out smoothly. their presence enforcing compliance with an iron hand that brooked no opposition. Black resilience surfaced in the face of this disruption, their strength enduring despite the loss of kin, their bonds strained but not entirely severed by the distance imposed upon them. Buyers ignored the pleas and cries that rose from the auction blocks, their focus fixed on profit and productivity, the family unit destroyed as a byproduct of their transactions, a calculated indifference that fueled the cruelty of the trade. The role of buyers was instrumental in the auction's devastating impact, a key component of the system that disrupted Black lives, turning familial love into a casualty of the economic machinery that drove the antebellum South, a reality that left an enduring mark on their history. The aftermath of auctions from 1820 to 1860 left Black enslaved individuals in a state of disarray, their lives upended by the forced relocation and the loss of familiar support systems. White buyers, dressed in fine wool suits that signified their newfound ownership, transported Black men, women, and children to new plantations across the South, the journey undertaken in cramped wagons or on foot, the harsh conditions adding to their physical and emotional burden. Black families, clad in tattered cotton dresses and shirts that offered little protection, faced the unfamiliar landscapes of their new homes, their support systems gone, their isolation acute as they were thrust into environments where no kin remained to offer solace. Overseers in gray wool coats imposed new and often stricter rules upon their arrival, their whips enforcing rapid adjustment, their control immediate and unyielding as they sought to integrate the newly purchased into the existing labor force. Black resilience emerged in this chaos, their ability to adapt to the new surroundings a quiet strength, their spirits tested by the abrupt changes yet holding firm against the odds. White enslavers demanded instant productivity, the transition from auction to work brutal and unforgiving, the loss of kin a constant ache that weighed on their minds as they labored under the sun. The aftermath brought a deep sense of despair, the severance of familial ties leaving a void that was difficult to fill. Yet Black endurance persisted, a foundation for survival that allowed them to forge new connections and rebuild in the face of adversity. This period of adjustment was marked by a struggle to maintain identity and hope, their resilience a beacon in the darkness, a testament to the human capacity to endure even the most harrowing circumstances imposed by the slave trade. The impact on Black children during auctions from 1820 to 1860 was profound, their childhood stolen by a system that treated them as commodities rather than individuals with potential. White auctioneers, clad in fine black wool coats that denoted their authority, sold children separately from their parents, their small bodies bid upon with little regard for their age or emotional needs, their value often deemed lower than that of adults, a reflection of their perceived utility. Black boys and girls, dressed in tattered cotton shirts that hung loosely on their frail frames, were torn from their parents' arms, their cries ignored by the white crowd, their security and innocence destroyed in the blink of an eye, leaving them vulnerable to an uncertain future. White buyers, attired in wool suits, sought these children as cheap labor or future workers, their choices heartless and driven by economic pragmatism, the separation permanent and devoid of compassion. a decision that severed familial bonds with callous efficiency. Overseers in gray wool coats managed the sales of these young ones, their whips ensuring order and compliance. Their role unyielding as they facilitated the transfer of children to new owners. Their presence a constant threat to any resistance. Black resilience grew in these young hearts, their young spirits enduring the trauma with a remarkable strength, their ability to adapt a quiet defiance against the system that sought to break them. The impact left deep scars, their early years marked by the trauma of separation and the loss of parental guidance, a legacy of resilience forged in pain that would shape their lives and the generations to come. This exploitation of children was a particularly cruel aspect of the auction process, yet their endurance shone through, a light of hope amidst the darkness imposed by the slave trade. Resistance to auction separation from 1820 to 1860 emerged among Black enslaved individuals, a defiant stand against the forces that sought to tear their families apart. Black men and women, clad in tattered cotton dresses that bore the marks of their labor, clung to their family members with a fierce determination, their resistance subtle yet powerful, their strength evident in their refusal to let go without a struggle, a silent protest against the auctioneer's commands. White auctioneers, dressed in fine black wool coats, faced delays and disruptions, their control challenged by this act of defiance, their authority tested as they struggled to maintain the smooth flow of the sale, their frustration mounting. Overseers in gray wool coats responded with harsh punishments, their whips cracking to enforce separation. Yet this resistance persisted despite the pain, a testament to the depth of their familial bonds. Black children hid among the crowd or behind their parents, their small bodies evading capture with a bravery that inspired those around them, their actions a spark of hope in the face of overwhelming odds, a quiet rebellion against their fate. White buyers, attired in wool suits, grew increasingly frustrated by these acts, their plans disrupted by the enslaved's determination, the defiance noted and met with increased vigilance. Yet, it could not be fully suppressed. Black resilience flourished in these acts of resistance, their efforts a spark for the future freedom movements that would eventually challenge the institution of slavery, a quiet rebellion that sowed the seeds of liberation. This resistance was fraught with risk, the consequences severe, but their endurance and courage laid the groundwork for the eventual end of the auction system, a legacy of strength born from the crucible of their suffering. Legal support bolstered auctions from 1820 to 1860, entrenching white power and providing a framework that legitimized the breaking of Black families. White lawmakers, dressed in fine wool suits that signified their elite status, passed laws upholding the legality of slave sales, their authority absolute as they crafted legislation that protected the economic interests of the planter class, a system designed to perpetuate slavery. Black families, clad in tattered cotton shirts that offered little protection, had no rights under these laws, their separation legalized and their pleas for mercy ignored by the courts, their humanity reduced to a legal fiction that served the white majority. Auctioneers, in black wool coats, operated with impunity under these legal protections, their actions sanctioned by the state, their role secure as they conducted sales with the full backing of the judicial system, a pillar of the slave economy. Overseers in gray wool coats enforced compliance with these laws, their whips backed by legislation that authorized their use, their control firm as they ensured the smooth execution of auctions, their presence a constant reminder of legal enforcement. Black resilience endured despite this legal oppression, their spirit unbroken by the chains of law, their strength a quiet protest against the system that sought to define them as property. The legal framework enabled the breaking of families, a system of institutionalized injustice that provided the foundation for the auction trade, a dark stain on American history that reinforced the power of white enslavers. This legal support was not merely a passive endorsement, but an active participant in the cruelty, shaping the social order and ensuring the continuation of the domestic slave trade until its eventual abolition, a legacy of oppression that Black endurance would eventually overcome. Cultural loss from auctions between 1820 and 1860 devastated Black communities, erasing a rich heritage that had sustained them through generations of hardship. White buyers, attired in wool suits that marked their economic dominance, scattered families across plantations, their traditions disrupted and their cultural practices fragmented, a dispersal that severed the threads of their collective identity. Black elders, dressed in tattered cotton dresses that bore the wear of years, lost the opportunity to pass down their knowledge and stories. Their role as cultural custodians diminished as they were sold away, their wisdom fading with each transaction. Auctioneers in fine black wool coats sold individuals without regard for their heritage, their cultural ties sold with them, the loss profound as communities were dismantled, a deliberate erasure of African roots. Overseers in gray wool coats suppressed the singing of spirituals and the telling of tales, their enforcement strict and pervasive, their control extending to the cultural expressions that offered solace, a further blow to Black identity. Black resilience persisted in the face of this loss, their oral traditions preserved in secret gatherings and whispered exchanges, their strength enduring as they sought to maintain a connection to their past. The cultural loss weakened their sense of self, yet their spirit survived, a legacy reclaimed over time through the efforts of those who remembered and rebuilt, a testament to their unyielding determination. This cultural devastation was a byproduct of the auction system, a tool of oppression that sought to strip them of their history. But their endurance ensured that fragments of their culture endured, a quiet victory against the forces that sought to erase them. The legacy of broken families from 1820 to 1860 is a profound testament to the resilience of Black enslaved individuals, shaping the course of history with its enduring impact and inspiring future generations. Black men and women, clad in tattered cotton shirts that bore the marks of their labor, endured the separation imposed by auctions, their strength a foundation that allowed them to survive the emotional and physical toll, a quiet defiance against the system that sought to destroy them. They preserved hope amidst the despair, their spirit unyielding as they clung to the possibility of reunion or freedom, their legacy enduring as a beacon of endurance that inspired resistance movements. Black children, despite the loss of their parents, carried forward with a resilience that belied their years, their strength inspiring as they adapted to new lives, their courage a testament to the human spirit's capacity to heal. White auctioneers, dressed in black wool coats, faded into history as their power ended with the Civil War, their role in the auction's impact lasting as a cautionary tale, a symbol of a system that crumbled under its own weight. Overseers in gray wool coats left behind scars both physical and emotional, yet black endurance prevailed, a quiet triumph that outlasted their cruelty, a victory of the human will. The legacy of these broken families fueled the abolitionist movements that gained momentum in the mid-19th century. Their suffering a catalyst for change, their courage a beacon that guided the path toward emancipation and equality. Descendants honor this strength, their heritage rebuilt through the reclamation of family histories and cultural traditions, a story of survival etched in time that continues to resonate. They stand as unsung heroes, their struggle a vital chapter in the narrative of American history, a legacy of resilience that reminds us of the power of the human spirit to prevail against the darkest of adversities. Their voices echoing through the ages as a call for justice and remembrance,